Ready? Okay, we're in Hillchos Abchira, Perek Beis, and Halacha Dalet. Okay. In this Perek, the Rambam explains mostly the inyan of the Mizbeach. And like I said before, that even though the Mizbeach is not the first thing that's mentioned in the Torah in Parshas Truma, but the Rambam goes with Shitosai that the whole purpose of the Beis HaMikdash was in order, like he said, l'hakav hakabonos. So therefore he starts with the Mizbeach. It says as follows in Halacha Dalet. Ushroish Neviim olam mehem imoim min ha'agayla. When the Yidden were, after the first Beis HaMikdash, the Yidden were on Golus for 70 years, and then Ezra brought the Yidden back from the Golus, and the time of, there was a king, Dayavish. Dayavish was a son of Esther Malka, and he, by Achashverosh, state that when Esther came to Achashverosh, and Achashverosh said to her, what do you want? So he said, Achatzia Malchus v'seyos. So Pasha the Taj Achatzia Malchus, I'll give you even half of the Malchus. But then was the Mefarshim said that's not the Pshat. He wasn't ready to give away half of the Malchus. But before him there was a king Kaidish. And Kaidish started building the Beis HaMikdash. And it stopped. And Melis, he said, if that's what you want now, is the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, so Achatzia Malchus v'seyos. But she didn't ask for that. She asked to come the next day, and she asked the next day that they should protect the Jewish people. Esther had a son by the name Dayavish, and Dayavish, he not only helped and permitted the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, but he also helped finance it. Because the Yidden came back, they were poor, they didn't have the money to finance it. So they wrote to Dayavish, and Dayavish told them to take money from the king's treasury. I once said this already, I think I said it on Purim, but I'll just repeat it briefly. The Megillah Esther ends with the pasuk, Vayosam HaMelech Achashverosh mas al ha'oretz v'yayom. The question is, what has this got to do with the story of the Beis HaMikdash? I mean, what's it got to do with the story of Purim? And then it says, V'chol ma'aseh g'urasa t'okfash or Mordechai. That you can go look up in the Sefer. You can look up. That's recorded someplace else. So, Pasha, the Taichin and the Mefarshim Taich to mean that when Esther became the queen, so the king wanted to know who does he have to express thanks to for getting him such a wonderful queen. And Ein Esther Magedes Esam Besmagadato, she doesn't tell anything about who she is. So the king felt that he has to do something, now not knowing where she comes from. So the king said, V'anocha Ramadinas also. He made he lowered the tax to the home, all over, hoping that this will somehow affect also Esther's people, whoever they are. And Mamela, it's a way of thanking, but why everybody? Because he doesn't know who. So he gave everybody. Once he found out who Esther was, so Mamela, so now he doesn't owe anything to the whole country. He owes something to the Jewish people. So the Mefarshim say in the Megillah that V'anocha Medinas Asa, but not to the people in Yerushalayim. Because he knew that those were her people. That was what Mordechai and Esther asked him, that he should be easy on their people. And he agreed to it. That's the Pashut, the Pshat, how they learn the Megillah. But the emes is, there's Mefarshim that say that it's a much deeper thing over here. The Megillah begins with Vayihi Achashverosh, and Achashverosh, when made a Suda, why did he make a Suda? What was the purpose of the Suda? V'shnas shalosh u'mochai, osa mishtach, osada ba'avoda, a mishtach, meya u'shmonim yem. The Gemara says in Megillah that he was celebrating the Churban Beis HaMikdash. And he was celebrating the goals from the Yidden. And therefore, he said that my predecessors, Bashetza and others, they made cheshbonis for the 70 years, but they were wrong. But I'm going to make the cheshbon my way, and according to my way, it comes out that in the third year of his malchus, there was still no redemption. Is a simon taka that the Yidden Chas v'Shalom would be in goals, that there wouldn't be a Beis HaMikdash. So he took out the kelim of the Beis HaMikdash, and state, why is the pasuk chur kapos utcheles? Why is there a big ches by chur kapos utcheles? State because ches goes on the shmoyne begodim of the Kohen Gadol, that he put on the begodim of the Kohen Gadol. He's the Kohen Gadol now. There's no more Yiddish Kohen Gadol. He's a Kohen Gadol. So his whole celebration was the Churban Beis HaMikdash, right? The end of the Megillah is ending in a very interesting way, according to these Mefarshim. These Mefarshim say that the end of the Megillah, that Vayas Amal Ashrei, why suddenly make a tax? Okay, so before I explain, because he reduced the tax, so he put back the tax. Okay, but then it doesn't fit in the story in the Megillah. It has nothing to do with the whole mess of Purim. The Mefarshim, the way they explain it is that, like we say in davening, Rabbis Moshavas B'Levish, Vasas Hashem Hisakum, he made his whole celebration was the Churban Beis HaMikdash. That is no longer going to be, right? So the Eivishter was Musaviv. The Eibush was Musaviv that Vashti should be killed, and he should pick a woman, and he picked Esther, and he should have a son, Dayavish, and his son will rebuild the Beis HaMikdash. Where did he get the money to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash? When the Yidden came to him that they need money to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, where did they get it? He said, take it from the Eitz HaMelech. What was the money in the Eitz HaMelech? It was this mas that Achashverosh put on the people. This mas, he put it to his treasury, and this mas, when the Yavish permitted the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash, that was the money. So the whole Megillah Esther begins that Achashverosh planned the Churban Abayis, and the Eibush was Mahapachet, that there was a binyan Abayis. So now now he says that when the Yidden came back with Ezra, not everybody came back. It was a big problem that time. There were Kahanim that didn't come back, and that time this it's not in the gate over here, but halachically there was even a problem who to give the Truma Ma'aser to, and they canceled and they gave it to Uviyim, what they had to give to Kahanim. So he says the Shloisha Neviim all imoim min ha'Geilah, that was Chagi and Zechariah, Malachi. These were the three Malachim that came back with them from Golis. Echad Heyeh Amokim HaMizbeach. One said Edus. In other words, he had a min hashemayim. They told him, and he told the Yidden where the Mokim HaMizbeach, because in the beginning, the Halacha said that a Mizbeach Mekayim Mechuvim B'Yoseh. It has to be in the exact place. And where is the exact place? So he told them where the exact place is. And then the Echad Heyeh Al Midaisav, one gave Edus about the sizes of the Mizbeach. Like we'll see later in the Halacha over here, the Mizbeach wasn't just a square box. It was there was a Yesod, and then it went up a little bit, and then there was the Emtza, there was a Karkav, it went up again, and then it went up again, and there was a ramp. The Kahanim used to walk on the Mizbeach. The Mizbeach was a very big place. So there was karanas, there was corners in each angle. There was a little beam, like extending a little beam, and then there was a place to walk around. They had to know all these cheshbonos. So he says that one echad heya al midaisov, the echad heya lahem shemakrivim al hamizbeach hazeh kol hakabonis af api she'ein shom bayis. This is a gavaldik chiddush. That, in other words, that when they built the mizbeach, even before they built the bayis. In other words, in order to be makif kabonis, you have to have a mizbeach. So the question is, do we have to wait till the whole Beis Hamikdash is built, and then you could bring kabonis? So one told them that you could make kabonis on the mizbeach, even if there is not a Beis Hamikdash. It's a very interesting vault. There was we all know in Lubavitch, we all know about the Sofnas Paneach. Sofnas Paneach was a Yid by the name Rabbi Yosef Rosen, who was called the Rogatchover. Why do we know about the Rogatchover? Number one, they say that he was a Lubavitch Chosid, and he had a bracha, I believe, from Friedrich, from some Tzedek. He had a bracha to be the genius that he was. And number two, the Friedrich Rebbe wanted that the Rebbe should have smicha, and b'meila, so he went to the Rogatchover to get smicha. And then there's the letters afterwards that he wrote the Rogatchover. That's printed in the Igros in Chaylik Aleph. There's printed letters that he wrote the Rogatchover. The Rogatchover was a rav in a city in Russia called Dvinsk. Dvinsk, like in many cities in Russia, they had a Chassidish rav and a Litvish rav. So the Rogatchover was the Chassidish rav, and then there was also a Litvish rav. Who was the Litvish rav in over there? Was a person known as Rabbi Simcha. Rabbi Simcha was the Mechaber. He made a very popular sefer on Rambam that everyone quotes out, called the Ur Sameach. That was his sefer. So the Rogatchover was known for the Sofnas Paneach, and he was known for the Ur Sameach. However, in addition to the Ur Sameach, he also made a sefer on Chumash. And just, the Rogatchover also, now they found ksavim from the Rogatchover. There was a rabbi in New Jersey. I once spoke about him, Rabbi Tayetz, the Pinchas Malka Tayetz. He went to Ched together with the Bianca Lipska. They were Yedidim from Amol, and they found ksavim, and they printed they're printing the ksavim from the Rogatchover Chumash. The Ur Sameach made a sefer on Chumash called Meshech Chochma, a popular sefer on Chumash. In the Meshech Chochma, he has a very interesting kasha, which I'm mentioning it because of this halach over here. Okay, we know that in the Mishkan there were two mizbechas. There was a mizbech achitzon and mizbech apnimi. Mizbech achitzon was not in the holy part, what we call the heichel, but it was in the azara on the outside of the holy part. And then later, there was in the holy part, not in the Kodesh Kodashim, in the Kodesh, there was the Mizbeach HaPnimi. The Mizbeach HaChitzon was known as Mizbeach HaNechoshes, because it was covered with copper. It was made from wood, but it was covered with copper. And the Mizbeach HaPnimi was known as the Mizbeach HaZov, because it was covered with gold. What were the purpose of these two mizbechas? Why did they need two mizbechas? All the kabbonos that they were makav in the Beis HaMikdash, all the kabbonos starting with the Korban Tomid, and all when a person was not menade a neder, or an adove, or a Korban Musaf, or Korban Yontav, everything was makav on the Mizbeach HaChitzon. The Mizbeach Azov had only one purpose, and the one purpose was that on that Mizbeach they were makta the Ketairis. Every day the Kohen would be makta the Ketairis, and Yom Kippur the Kohen Gadol did it himself, and every day the Ketairis was on the Mizbeach HaPnimi. Now, when you learn Chumash and you learn Pashas Truma, so what it says over there, V'ikli Truma, and they should make Rasuli Migdash, then the Pashas Truma goes into all the Kelim of the Beis HaMikdash. Talks about the Aron, about the Menorah, about the Mizbeach, about the Keroshim, the Yerias, all the things of the Mizbeach. Then comes Pashas Tetzaveh. In Pashas Tetzaveh, you learn about the Begodim of the Beis HaMikdash. At the end of Pashas Tetzaveh, the last part of Pashas Tetzaveh, suddenly they remind themselves about the Mizbeach HaPnimi. Sees the Mizbeach Mikta Ketaitis, Zav Tar. So the Ar Sameach asked the question, why, when we talk about all the Kabbalah, why didn't it say it right away? You should make two Mizbechas and talk about the two Mizbechas. So he says a very interesting teretz, and it's similar to what he said over here. He says in the Beis HaMikdash, you needed a Mizbeach, because without a Mizbeach, you can't be you can't make a korban. You needed a Menorah, because without a Menorah, there's nothing to light. You have to light, so you need a Menorah. You needed a Shulchan. Why? Because without a Shulchan, where are you going to put the Lechem upon him? But he says, there's one exception. If there's no bias, like we're going to over here in the Rambam, there's no bias, but there is a Mizbeach, so on the Mizbeach, you could be marked the Kabbonos. But the Gemara says, in Zvachim, Daf Muntes Amud Aleph, let me read you the Lashon of Gemara. The Gemara says, Mizbeach Shenekar, if the Mizbeach was uprooted, was destroyed, the din is Maktirin Ketairis Bim Kaimai. You can be marked the Ketairis on the place where the Mizbeach stood. You don't even need a Mizbeach. So that's not a part of the thing that you needed dafka in the Mishkan. That's why it's separate from everything else. But so, like we said over here, that on the Mizbeach, Makriv al Mizbeach, you could be marked about bias as long as there's a Mizbeach. If there's no Mizbeach, it can't be marked there. But the Mizbeach Aktairus is even Mizbeach Sheneka. And Rashi says over here, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Mizbeach Aktairus on which they made the Mizbeach Azor. Okay. Let's go back now to the Rambam. Now the Rambam is going to go and, well, not yet, but soon going to go into the details of the Mizbeach. And he says as follows. Mizbeach she'asa Moshe v'she'asa Shlomo, the Mizbeach that Moshe made for the Mishkan, and the Mizbeach that Shlomo made for the Beis HaMikdash, by Yisrisha. V'she'asa b'nei HaGoyla, and the one that was made in the times of Ezra, when they came back from Golis. And v'she'asa le'asais, so kulam, all these mizbechos, esa amos goyve kol echad mehem. Each one of them was 10 amos high. 10 amos is a lot. 10, if we talk about, we don't know exactly how much an amma is, but the mashal by a talis cotton, you say it should be amma al amma. How much is amma al amma? So there's different opinions. Some say Amma is 18 inches. Some say an Amma is 20 or 24, 22. There's different shiurim in the shir Amma, but a minimum is 18, is a foot and a half. That means to say, if it was a foot and a half, so 10 Ammas means it was 15 feet high. It's quite high. That's why they had a ramp to get up there and everything, and they walked on the Mizbeach. That was also see over here. So he says that Kulam, all of them was Esa Amas Gaiva Kol Echad Mehem. Now, B'zeh HaKosa B'Torah U'Shorish Amas Kamosoi. You can ask me a question. In Chumash state on this, in Chumash state that it was 3 Amas high. So he says that is Mokim Hamaracha B'Vad. That was the section where they made the Maracha, means where the fire was, where they laid out the woods, and where they laid out the piece of the kabbalah. That was what does it mean? That was Shol Shamas. It means like this. He's soon going to explain that the Mizbeach was made sections, one section on top of another section. So there was the first section, and then they indented and they built the second section. Then they indented and they built a third section. So that third section was Sholish Amas Kamosai. Not as we'll soon see. The question does that mean with the corners or not? We'll soon see that inside. Umizbeach she'osu b'nei ha'goyla, and the Mizbeach, which the people that came back in the time of Ezra that they built, v'chein ha'osed ribonis, the same thing also in the future one, midas orkai v'rochboi lamed beis amas al lamed beis amas. It was 32 amma. It was a square, 32 amma by 32 amma. Now that doesn't mean that he's talking about the overall, counting from the bottom on. Not that the top part was 32 ammas. As it went up, as it went up from one part to the other, so if you go measure from how much space did it stand on was Lamed Beis Amma, but the top itself we'll soon see was less than that. So now he goes and saying another thing about the measurements. Yud Amos al Gaiva HaMizbeach. Yud Amos al Gaiva HaMizbeach. The 10 Amos of the height of the Mizbeach. Mehem, among them, in the Amma itself, there was 2 types of Amos. There was, usually we say, an Amma usually says a fist. A tefach, I'm sorry. A tefach is usually a fist. And an Amma is a few fists, right? So he says that how many tefachim went into an Amma? You say a foot. A foot could be 12 inches, and maybe if you want, you could make, for certain measures, maybe a foot is less or more. So he said over here also that Amma Shogaiva Mizbeach, the Amma of the height of the Mizbeach, Mehem, among them was Ba'amma Bas Heitvachim. There was an Amma that had 5 hand fists in it, and Mehem, and from them was Amma Bas Shisha Tvachim. Now, what does that mean? That means that it means if the fist is closed tight or the fist is loose a little bit, so it comes out more. It could be both, or it could be 5, but when the 5 is tightened, it comes out less. When the 5 is loose, it comes out more. Ushar kol amas habinyan, and the rest of the amas of the building of the Mizbeach was ba'ama ba'shisha tfachim. The gaiva kol hamizbeach is nun ches tfachim. Now, the question is, something sounds wrong. right? Because if you say that an amma is 6 tvachim, and if you say that the Mizbeach was 10 ammas high, so everyone knows that 10 times 6 is 60. So how does the Rambam come to say that it was 58? So the teretz is, you have to know what the Rambam said before that. The Rambam said not every amma in the Mizbeach was an amma of 6 tvachim. There was an amma also of 5 tvachim. And b'meila, the way they explain it is, the first thing was the Yesod. The Yesod was the base on which they built the next section. That Yesod was an amma high, but it was an amma of 5 tvachim, not an amma of 6 tvachim, an amma of 5 tvachim. On the top, they made kronos on each corner of the Mizbeach. The kronos were each an amma high, but they were an amma of 5 tvachim, not an amma of 6 tvachim. So now, if that's the case, you have to take off, and the rest of the Mizbeach was an amma of 6 tvachim. So then, if you take 10 tvachim, you take 10 ammas and you times it by 6, it becomes out 60. And if you take off one for the bottom and one for the top, so 60 minus 2 is 58. And that's.
Was there a discrepancy?
Huh?
Why was there discrepancy?
There was not a discrepancy. That's how the measurements that they use. Not a discrepancy. Chas v'sholom.
Why wasn't it?
Not a discrepancy. Okay, we shall stop over here and continue Mitzvah Shem tomorrow.